So this is my presentation for chapters 15 and 16. So we're going to start off with chapter 15, which is organizational design, effectiveness, and innovation. So to begin, I wanted to talk about what is organizational success. An organization, as defined in our textbook, is a system of consciously coordinated activities or forces of two or more persons. And then our book talks about some aspects of organizational success through coordination of effort, which is achieved through formulation and enforcement of policies, rules, and regulations. The second being aligned goals, so having common goals amongst employees and company-wide through strategic plan. Next is through division of labor. So this is where those goals are pursued by individuals who pursue or who perform separated but related tasks. And then hierarchy of authority. So this kind of plays in with how managers have to maintain that integrity of the hierarchy of authority by following the command principle or the overall goal of, or the overall principle of the organization. Next, some of the organizational components that I wanted to talk about include the organizational size. So the organizational size could either be a small organization or a larger organization. In my experience, I have experience working at a smaller organization. I work at a HR outsourcing company as an HR intern. So I have experience working in a smaller company, whereas I don't have that much experience working in larger corporations, which I'm sure are different. Next is organizational culture. So this kind of depends on how the organization is based on its structure. Is it more flexible or is it more structured? That kind of depends on the employees. And then the skill level is described as complex tasks which require more managerial input, whereas less complex tasks require less managerial input. And then managerial responsibilities, this kind of was explained through stating that senior level executives tend to have narrow span of control, whereas middle managers have more responsibilities and they're more complex. Next, I want to talk about a closed versus a open system. So our textbook defines a closed system as a more self-sufficient entity where it is more closed to the surrounding environment, whereas an open system depends on the constant interaction with the environment for survival. So the distinction or the difference between the two really depends on the matter of degree. So basically how great a role does with the environment to keep the system functioning. So it really depends for that one. So for learning organizations, to start off, our textbook defines learning organization as proactively creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge and changes its behavior on the basis of new knowledge and insights. So I think learning organization is very important aspect of organizational success, because organizations are always changing and it can be hard to decipher how our employees are going to go through the change and through the evolving change as an organization. So this kind of sets a basis of steps. So there's information acquisition. So this is the process for which the organization obtains the information from the internal and external sources. And then step 2, information distribution, distributing that information. Step 3, information interpretation, so making sense of all the information that has been acquired. Knowledge integration occurs when information is shared and accumulated across different parts of the organization. Organizational memory, the last step. This is where the organization finds a method to save the knowledge that was obtained that could be either used in the present or the future. Next, I wanted to talk about organizational design. Our textbook describes organizational design as a set of structures of accountability and responsibility used to develop and implement strategies and the human resource practices and information and business processes that activate those structures. So our textbook talks about the traditional design, horizontal design, and open design. The traditional design is more of a traditional approach. This tends to have functional, divisional, or matrix structures. The horizontal design works to flatten hierarchy and organize people around specific segments of the workflow. And then open design is more utilization of structural flexibility to maximize potential value through outsourcing and external collaboration. So next I wanted to talk about the 7 types of organizational structures. So the functional structure, as defined in our textbook, is groups people according to business function they perform, for example, marketing, finance, manufacturing. The next one being divisional structure is where employees are segregated into a group based on industries, products, or services, customers, clients, or geographic regions. The third, matrix structure, which combines a vertical structure with an equally strong horizontal overlay. Horizontal structure is where teams or work groups, either temporary or permanent, are created to improve collaboration and work on common projects. Next is hollow structure, which is a network structure designed around central core key functions and outsources other functions to outside companies or individuals who can do them cheaper. For example, this could be like the company that I work for, the outsourced HR. A larger corporation could outsource to our company, and that could be defined as a hollow structure. Next is the module structure, which is the company assembles product parts, components, or modules provided by external contractors. And then lastly, virtual structure is one whose members are geographically apart, usually working with email or other forms of information technology. And then lastly, I want to talk about organizational innovation. So innovation within the workplace is extremely important because things are always changing and evolving. It's important to determine how managers are going to be able to implement new or implement innovation to affect long-term success within a company. So some of the aspects of innovation that our textbook talks about is product innovation, which is defined as a change in the appearance or functionality or performance of a product or service and the creation of a new one. And then process innovation is a change in the way a product or service is conceived, manufactured, or distributed. So next we're going to move on to chapter 16, managing stress and change. So to start off, I want to talk about external and internal stress. As defined in our textbook, external factors come from outside of the organization, and then internal factors are obviously inside the organization, so factors that are presented at work that could affect an employee's emotional state, such as stress. So some of the side effects of stress include fatigue and tiredness, and our textbook kind of dives deeper into this, which I found kind of interesting, the difference between the two, whereas fatigue is known as a more prolonged or long-term state of tiredness that is that progresses over time, whereas tired is more short-termed and it's more of a not as a prolonged side effect of stress. And then as well as negative thoughts, so just feeling overwhelmed and lack of motivation within the workplace can be a side effect. So next I want to talk about coping strategies. Defined in our textbook was one of them control strategy, which consists of behaviors and cognitions that directly anticipate or solve problems. Next being escape strategies are those in which you avoid or ignore stressors. And then lastly, symptom management strategies, which focus on reducing the symptoms of stress. And these can include relaxation techniques such as like meditation, exercise, even medication. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. I try to meditate and to exercise when I'm feeling stressed, and I know that helps. But control strategy and escape strategies is much more harder for me personally to incorporate to cope with stress, just because I handle things hands-on. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about overcoming change. So of course, it's important to talk about it, to not let things bottle up inside you and to, overthink. It's important to, get it out of your system to be able to learn and grow from your mistakes. Next, fail productively. So even though failure sucks, it's common and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try again. And failure only stems, or failure only proactively creates growth for the future. And then lastly, choose who you talk to, or choose your audience. So make sure that you're sharing your failures or your concerns with someone that you trust, and who's going to help you, learn from your mistakes and grow. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the semester, and I hope that you have a great rest of your summer. Thank you.